So hello, I'm Stephen Burns with the Northwest Regional Spinal Cord Injury System, and I welcome you to the SCI Forum. The forums, the video recordings, and our online media content are made possible by grants from the National Institute on Disability and Rehabilitation Research and the Craig H. Nielsen Foundation. Tonight we are pleased to have Peter McKee here for a presentation, Navigating the System, Social Security Disability Insurance, and Supplemental Security Income. Peter McKee is an attorney with Douglas, Drachler, and McKee, and for the past 29 years has represented people with disabilities before the Social Security Administration. So now I'm pleased to turn it over to Peter.
All right. I want to make sure everyone has what you need here. Maybe this new person arriving doesn't have either. You should have a blue book like this, and you also need a sheet like this. Because as we go along, you're going to be working off this sheet. Let me tell you how this is going to be. I do encourage questions as we go along because I got to say that a lawyer talking for an hour might be a little too much for anyone, even though it's a fascinating topic. It's actually a very important topic, but we're dealing with obscure regulations, and you need to be able to follow what's going on. And so what we're going to do, on this blank sheet that you have, it says Social Security Lament. Down at the bottom you'll see a whole bunch of different words below the line. Those are words that I'm going to talk about. Those are words that you need to know. If you're going to deal with Social Security, you've got to understand what each of those words means and how it works. So what I want you to do is to keep those words in mind, and if you hear me say any of those words, and you should hear me say each of those words several times, I want you to immediately interrupt me. Take your good upbringing and throw it to the wind, and then ask, say you've heard that word. And I will then tell you on what line that word goes. So in the end, you'll have this whole thing filled out, and what it is a song sheet. And I did bring my banjo, and we're going to lock the doors, and no one leaves until we sing. And it's not me. It's until we sing. I've been doing a presentation like this for years and years. My 23-year-old daughter came to one when she was 4 years old, thought it was normal that a father would be singing to complete strangers and making them sing along, and she was singing along too. She now regrets that at 23, but that's okay. So the other thing that you should have is this book here, and this is a guide. It tells you a couple of things. It tells you things about the Social Security system as an organization. It tells you about the disability programs that they have. It tells you how you go about applying for these benefits. It'll tell you about some of the rules or the standards of disability that they use. And it'll give you some suggestions on how to deal with the bureaucracy. Before we begin, though, whenever I'm at a presentation, I want to know something about the person who's speaking so I can decide if I believe what they have to say. A little bit about me. I started doing Social Security work as a VISTA volunteer in Macon, Georgia in 1974. I then went to law school, and during the summers I worked with legal aid organizations around the country, first in Georgia, then in Yakima, and then in Sacramento. I graduated from University of California Davis Law School in 1978 and worked for 3 years in Port Angeles, Washington with what was then called Evergreen Legal Services, the statewide legal services organization. Then I went into private practice and have been doing Social Security representation in private practice ever since. So I've been doing this as a lawyer for 29 years and 32 or 3 as a paralegal and then a lawyer. So I have a fairly jaded viewpoint. I only see people who've been denied. I don't see people who've been approved. No one calls me up and says, by the way, I just want to let you know I've applied for Social Security. They approved me. Wanted to let you know that. So what I say is from that jaded perspective of someone who sees over and over and over again people who have been denied. But it's a useful perspective, I think, because you're here because you want to understand the Social Security system, and maybe you've had some difficulties in dealing with Social Security, or you are fearful that you might have difficulties in dealing with Social Security. Or you're lost in the maze, and that's understandable. So hopefully with this guidebook you'll be less lost, more informed, and you'll go away with a snappy little song. So let's start with the materials. If you turn to page 2 of the materials. It talks about basic facts of Social Security and SSI. Now, what's important, now you know, did you just miss it? Come on. SSI, you heard that before. Everyone's too shy. You're too well brought up. SSI goes on line number 2. So you can write the word SSI in line number 2. To give you a little incentive, the person who interrupts the least has to lead the song. So maybe you're going to be a little more interested this time. All right, so if you hear any of those words. But Social Security, when you're dealing with Social Security, you've got to understand that there are 2 disability programs that Social Security runs. They are frequently thought of interchangeably, but they are different. And you can get lost in the whole process if you don't know which program you're dealing with. So the first program I'm going to talk about is known as Social Security Disability Insurance, also known as SSDI, or sometimes called Title II, or sometimes called Social Security, sometimes erroneously called SSI. But it is a program that is more like a disability insurance policy. You have to work, pay into the system by paying premiums, and the way you pay premiums for this insurance policy is you have FICA taken out of your paycheck. If you've never worked, then usually you will not be eligible to get any Social Security because you didn't buy the program. You might be eligible for some other program, and we'll talk about that, but you won't be eligible for Social Security based on your earnings. You have to be disabled, and we'll talk about what disability means. That's going to be at the heart of this whole matter. Disabled. All right, someone really does not want to lead this. Disabled is line 17. To understand how the Social Security Disability Insurance Program, or what I'll call Title II, works, you have to show that from the date you say you became disabled, that you worked and paid into the system 5 out of the last 10 years, or 20 out of the last 40 work quarters. Sometimes figuring out when you became disabled is hard. Sometimes, especially in cases like spinal cord injuries from a traumatic accident or something, it's very clear where it happened. But if a person has depression, it's kind of hard to figure out exactly when did the depression get so bad that they say they meet the standard of disability. What's important is, if there is some question about when this disability began, it's important to reasonably say it was as far back as you can reasonably prove. Don't be shy. If it seemed as though there were big problems 2 years ago and they got really worse a year ago, the question is, did you become totally disabled a year ago or 2 years ago? Well, since it matters where you say you became disabled, because from the time you became disabled, you have to look 10 years back and show that you worked and paid into the system 5 out of those last 10 years. If from a year ago you hadn't worked in 6 years, you won't be eligible because you can't look 10 years back. You can only, if you look 10 years back, you only worked 4 out of the last 10 years. But if it was 2 years ago and you look from that date back, then you can show maybe that you worked 5 out of the last 10 years. So it's important to figure out when it was that you became disabled. Now, you get a quarter of coverage and a credit, 20 out of the last 40 work quarters that you worked and paid into the system. If you work 1 minute, do you get a quarter of credit? No. Currently, it is $1,000 in a quarter, 3 months, that you worked and had FICA taken out. You would get a quarter worth of credit. It's at least, in the past 10 years, it's been as low as $500. They've been creeping it up. But you have to say, keep it in mind, that it's from the date you say you became disabled, show that you worked and paid into the system 5 out of the last 10 years. Now, in addition to showing that you worked, people say, well, what if I have a lot of income coming in from investments? Will that matter? No. Bill Gates, if he becomes disabled, could be eligible for disability benefits, even though he has massive amounts of Microsoft stock. So income and resources with Social Security disability program do not matter. They do matter in the SSI program. When you get, basically I tell people, all that you can expect to get from Social Security are 2 things. Number 1, dollars, and number 2, a medical coverage. Not the greatest amount of dollars, not the best medical coverage, but those are the only two things that they really give you. There are some other side programs, but the reason that people are applying is because of those two benefits. The medical insurance that you get with Social Security is called Medicare. Medicare, unfortunately, on page 3, we talk about it. Medicare is an insurance program that doesn't start for 2 years until 2 years after you became disabled. Actually, it's 2 years after you were eligible to receive dollars. And that can be a real problem. If you have a severe accident today and everyone agrees that you are disabled, you will not have medical coverage for 2 years and 5 months from today. And I say and 5 months because there is also a 5-month waiting period for Social Security. From the date, let's say you were in the accident, they don't pay anything for the first 5 months. Then after the 5 months, they will pay. But the medical coverage won't kick in until 2 years after you first became eligible for receiving benefits. I've often wondered, why is this? As the 5-month period, all I can think of is it sure saves the government a lot of money. As to the Medicare, I think there are some other theories about that, and there is some discussion about changing that. But that will be a long way down the road and a big change for them to do that. Now, how much do you get on Social Security? Well, I can never, people say, can you tell me how much I'm going to get if I'm found eligible for Social Security? And the answer is no, I can't. And the reason I can't is because it is based on a very complex formula, based on how long you worked, how recently you worked, how much you were paid, and how recently you were paid the highest amount. And I've never been successful in doing a reasonable calculation of this. What I can tell people is frequently we all get a sort of a year-end statement every year or two. Something comes in the mail and it says from Social Security saying these are your earnings, and it says if you become disabled, this is what you get. If you become retired, this is what you'll get. That's at least a ballpark. If you have ever gotten one of those. Has anyone ever gotten one of those? Yeah. All right, look at those. Those tell you some ballpark figure about what you're going to get. The other thing about Social Security disability insurance benefits, or Title II, is from the date you apply, you can only get benefits back 1 year from your date of application. Even if you were totally disabled for 5 years, but if you didn't get around to applying, then you just let those benefits go by. So you can go up to 1 year prior to the date of application. That's different for SSI, and I'll talk about that. So the basic outline of this program, Social Security Disability Insurance, is disabled, which we'll talk about, plus worked and paid into the system. Paid from the time you became disabled, you paid in 5 out of the last 10 years, and with it comes a medical coverage called Medicare. The other program that Social Security runs on page 3 is Supplemental Security Income Disability, or SSI, sometimes called SSI. That's okay, we said it, and it's line 2. Now, are you telling me I haven't said any of the other ones? I guess not. Benefits. Now, this guy does not want to lead it. I said lawyer? Okay. Benefits are medical. I sort of said benefits. Line 13, benefits are medical. And lawyer, I said lawyer? That would be line 20. All right, so we got Social Security down. Now we're going to talk about SSI. SSI, Supplemental Security Income. This is a program that started, I think it was authorized in 1972, got into effect in 1974, and basically it federalized a bunch of state programs, state disability welfare programs. Social Security, very late in the game, said, you know, if someone didn't work very much and they are disabled, and because they didn't work very much, they earned enough to get some Social Security, but they're only going to get $100 a month. There should be something for the poor and disabled. And so, some states had a program, but Social Security systematized it and sort of grandfathered in these programs and created the SSI program, Supplemental Security Income. The idea is to supplement the income of a very low-income person who is disabled. So, unlike Social Security, you got to not only be disabled, you have to be poor. How poor do you have to be? Well, on page 3 it says you can't have non-exempt resources over $2,000. If you're a married couple, you can't have non-exempt resources over $3,000. That's pretty low. And non-exempt, we're not going to go into the great details of what are exempt and non-exempt, except to say a house you live in is exempt, a car you have is exempt, but your savings account is not exempt, your retirement account is not exempt, your 401k is not exempt, even some life insurance policies with cash value may not be exempt. But you have to be fairly poor. I represent a wide range of clients. I have represented sons and daughters of Congress people. I've represented spouses of Social Security disability judges. I've represented a lot of homeless people. I've represented formerly employed people. You had a question?
Yeah, but did you say earlier that income from investments are not non-exempt?
The question is income from investments exempt, basically, right? No. Income, if you have $1,000 a month coming in from your Microsoft stock that you bought 20 years ago, then your income is $1,000. You will not be eligible for SSI because your income is going to be too high. So it is income and resources that is the issue. Now, the disabled standard we'll talk about is the same. Income must be fairly low. Most of my clients, well, I don't know about most, but I represent a lot of clients who are on public assistance, and their income is $339 a month. The only positive aspect of that is I know that they would be eligible for SSI if they're found disabled. Frequently, SSI is to supplement, as I say, the income of someone who has Social Security disability, but it's at $300 or $400 a month because of their earning level. So, how much does it supplement? On page 4, in the state of Washington, the combined benefit level, let's say you're getting $400 on Social Security, SSI will supplement that, assuming you are poor, and bring it up to $643 a month here in the state of Washington. Now, each year it changes, the cost of living. So I'm talking about right today. Come January, it will change slightly. Cost of living increase. But this is the range that you should know about. The maximum amount you'll get on SSI alone, let's say you have $100 a month coming in on your investments from Microsoft. That's $100 of income. They will supplement that income, but you will get a total of $623. Or if you have no income, $623 is currently the amount that people get on SSI in the state of Washington. You can be eligible, obviously, for both programs. If you're both disabled and you've paid a little bit into Social Security and you have some earnings, then you may be eligible for both. Now, it is also true that Social Security encourages people to apply for both programs. And that's because you never know what you're going to be eligible for. I had a client who applied who didn't think he had enough earnings, but lo and behold, he had sufficient earnings, so he got a much higher amount on Social Security. Oh, I think I didn't mention on Social Security, what's the amount that you're going to get? Well, currently on page 3 I mentioned the maximum amount as of 2007 that an individual can get is $2,116. Now, that person to get that probably would have had a very high earning. So this is not going to be anything close to what they had as income before they became disabled. In any event, SSI pays at a much lower level, and I've always told people, rarely is getting Social Security the end-all and be-all to anything. Usually it will be vastly lower income than what you used to have. The medical coverage, if you were working in the past, will not be anything like the medical coverage you may have had. But it's a very valuable tool. It's a very important tool, and it's certainly worth pursuing. With SSI, you also get a medical coverage. But it's not Medicare, it's Medicaid. Medicaid is very important because Medicaid pays for medications, where Medicare does not pay for medications. It's also especially helpful in cases where people need psychological counseling. Medicare does not pay for psychological counseling where Medicaid does. So if you're eligible, the other thing about SSI is if you apply, it does not go back 1 year from the date of application. It only goes to the date of application. So if you've been thinking about applying and you don't get around to it for a couple of years, you really lost the benefits. They only do it from the date of application forward. So I always tell people, whenever you think you reasonably could show the standard of disability that you are disabled, then you should apply. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, I have in the materials information about reopening a case. I'm not going to cover that now. It's on page 5. Sometimes you can ask if you applied, were denied, didn't fight it, and then you apply again. You can try to have them go look at your old application, but don't count on it. It is not something that they must do. So I always say, and we'll talk about it more, keep on pursuing your case. So, quick summary of the two programs. Social Security, disabled plus you worked and paid into the system. The amount you get is based on your past earnings, and you get Medicare. SSI, disabled plus poor, probably haven't worked much, if at any. The medical coverage you get is Medicaid. The amount that you get is a maximum of $623 a month now, and it may go up slightly. Both programs require a definition of disability, and that's the important thing on page 6 of the material. The definition of disability is laid out there on the first bold paragraph. It is the inability to engage in any substantial and gainful activity by reason of any medically determinable impairment, which can be expected to result in death or has lasted or can be expected to last a continuous period of not less than 12 months. Yeah, shake your head on that one, because what does that mean? What?
A lawyer wrote that.
A lawyer wrote that. I think a lawyer and a bureaucrat and a whole lot of other people wrote that, and it was a committee, clearly. It is not the definition that you'll find in Webster's. It's not the definition you'll find in the ADA. It's not the definition you'll find with Seattle Metro's bus passes. It's not the definition you'll find in private insurance. It is Social Security's own definition. It is maybe the most restrictive definition that is out there. But don't fight it. The only way you can deal with Social Security is to understand that definition and, I don't know, use it to your advantage. At least use it. I want to let you know that the only way that I know how to deal with this is to break it down. I often tell people to learn the definition. Imagine you're learning a foreign language. It is a language spoken in the wild world of the land of Social Security, and the only word you're going to learn of this language is the word disability. Now, the problem for English speakers is that the word disability sounds like an English word. And in fact, we think we know what it means. And when you hear sometimes people talking about disability in Social Security, you think they're talking English. They aren't. They're talking Social Securityese. But if you think they're talking English and you say, well, and you chat normally about what everyone else knows to be disability, you're not talking about this definition. So don't fight the definition. Learn it, and learn how to use it if you need to. So how do you do it? Well, lawyers always break things down. The inability to engage in any, and by any they mean any, work, any substantial gainful activity, which generally is called work. All right. Any means any. It is not that you can't do your old work. It's not enough that you can't do the work you used to do, were trained to do, would pay you enough, would hire you, is available right nearby. You could show all of that, and you still could easily be denied, because they're talking about any substantial gainful activity. And by any, they mean any. I'm part of a nationwide Social Security organization, and we have national conferences, and I was on the board for 15 years. And I remember one conference we had a sort of a little poll. Could people suggest the most ludicrous job that any of their clients was ever said to be able to do to justify the denial of benefits? I raised my hand and said, artificial flower stem wrapper. Now, there is a book about this thick, sort of a telephone book size thing called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, produced by our Department of Labor in 1987. And it purports to describe every job in the U.S. and what it takes to do that job. Well, first off, I had a hearing once with a new judge in the Seattle area. and the vocational expert who testified said, possibly the client could be a barista. And the judge stopped and said, excuse me, what's a barista? And we all looked at each other and said, oh my God, he's from out of town. We had to tell him about barista. And then we had to acknowledge that it wasn't in the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, because guess what? That wasn't on the radar screen in 1987. Howard Schultz had not conquered the world yet. So there are many jobs that are not there, and there are a lot of jobs that are so not real, but they're still out there in this book. And in theory, you got to show that you can't do any one of those jobs. Now we're talking about substantial gainful. We're talking about full-time, 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's the basic of any job, 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So it says any substantial. Substantial means real work, not just make work. If your Aunt Tilly gives you $1,000 a month to dust a Rolls Royce, number one, and if you can do that, take it, because you won't be probably getting $1,000 a month from Social Security, although you would not be. Maybe Aunt Tilly would throw in some medical coverage. That'd be kind of nice. But what's important to understand is that that's not really substantial work. That's make work. More realistically, the question is, what if you are working in a sheltered workshop? Does the fact that you are working in a sheltered workshop mean that you aren't disabled because you're doing substantial gainful activity? Well, that kind of depends upon how sheltered the sheltered workshop is. If you can come when you want, if you're supposed to be assembling something and whether you do 1 or 50, it doesn't really matter. If they have a job coach that will help you through some tough times, unlike if you're at McDonald's, they aren't going to have a job coach helping you. It depends on how sheltered it is. I've certainly represented people who have worked at that situation, and our argument, of course, was that it was not substantial work. So that's the issue with substantial work. Gainful, on the other hand, is money. Is this a job that you get paid for, or is it this kind of job that you get paid for? If Bill Gates said, look, I'm not working. Yes, I go to Microsoft every day, but I don't get paid. Well, you don't get paid because you don't need to get paid, and you decide to donate your salary to some worthy cause. The fact that he's not getting paid doesn't mean that he's not doing gainful activity. He's doing the kind of thing that people do get paid for. So it's not just whether you're getting paid, but is it the kind of work that people do get paid for. And currently, Social Security has a sort of a magical number. Currently, it's $900 per month. And I think in 2008, it'll be $940 a month. If you are earning gross currently $900 a month, then Social Security presumes that you are doing substantial gainful activity, even if it's part-time. So frequently, people who are aware of this are very aware that the closer they get to $900, the closer Social Security is going to look at and say, well, you're doing $900 worth of work. Sounds to me like you're doing substantial gainful activity. That's something that you need to be aware of, and it will go up slightly in 2008. The other thing is it must be expected to last a continuous period of 12 months. Frequently, I will see clients who have had some condition, whether it's a traumatic event or it's a disease process. The question that is, can we expect that this condition, maybe even as it is now, will be as limiting in 12 months from the start of it? So people can be in serious automobile accidents, and there's a period of recovery. The question is not how are you doing now, but how is it expected that you're going to be doing in 12 months? Sometimes Social Security will deny benefits saying, though we find that you are disabled now, we believe that in 12 months you won't be disabled. That's a very tough thing to disprove. How do you prove that in now 8 months from now that you will or won't be severely impaired? Well, sometimes doctors can project. They can reasonably make estimations. With a kind of disease process or injury, this is what we are fairly certain of. But sometimes it's just a cop-out. When I see that, I say to myself, that's someone that they didn't deny except to say, well, the future is murky. So what you should understand is that this definition of disability is not just strictly a legal one. It's one that involves your age, your education, your work experience, vocational considerations, medical considerations, but it is a definition that ultimately a lawyer in the form of a judge will apply and decide, in your case, whether you have met that standard. I always tell clients, you and I can know that you're disabled by this standard. That's just the start. We now have to prove that you meet this standard, and that's often much harder. If it were just a matter of, I know I'm disabled, then what they would say at a hearing is, do you swear you're disabled? If you say you are, then you'll get benefits. Now, come on. I said a word right there that no one interrupted me on. Hearing. Come on. All right. Benefits. I did say benefits are medical. That's line 13. Hearing is line 12. That's good. I didn't say it, but he's reading. All right. GAU. General Assistance Unemployable is a state-run, it's the current low-income welfare disability program run by the state of Washington. So GAU is on line 1. You know, that doesn't make a good image, so I'll keep ducking. What's important, and I oftentimes clients say, I have a letter from my doctor, and it says I am disabled. And if I look at it, and it really is a one sentence, my client Johnny is disabled, I would say, you know what, that letter doesn't really help much at all. It says you have a doctor who thinks you're disabled, I don't know by what definition, but hasn't provided any information about why that doctor has decided. And the thing is, Social Security would say, well, that's interesting, doctor, but guess what? You're in no position to say, from our standpoint, that the person's disabled because you aren't applying that definition. Tell us the doctor talk. Tell us what medical findings you've had. Tell us what restrictions you've seen, what limitations. What I can say is that disability, I just had this discussion with someone on the phone today. They said they were calling for their sister who has cancer, and Social Security said, oh, well, you're not disabled. And I said to the person, one, I need to talk to your sister, but there are certainly people who have cancer who are in no way meeting this definition. There are other people who have a diagnosis of strained ligaments where it's completely disabled. It is not the label that is put to it. That's the starting point. But the continuation is, how severe is this condition? So it's important to understand that it is how severely limiting are the conditions that you feel are disabling for you, and how do you prove it? Now, I also have some other information here that we're going to skip over about children's benefits. The seminar that I've done, I mean, sometimes I do the seminar, it takes 3 hours, so we got to skip some stuff. And I'm going to skip over the children's benefits, but they're there. And I'm also going to skip over what on page 8 is the adult children's benefits. That always cracks me up, adult children's benefits. I will mention...
Any words there that we need to get?
No, we'll cover them. We're okay on the words. He really does not want to lead the song, and that's understandable. I can say one thing, is that Social Security in 1997 declared a new policy. It used to be, no matter what your medical condition was, if you meet the standard of disability, you will be found eligible for disability benefits. They carved out an exception. It's called drug addiction or alcoholism. That one, we're in a new sort of prohibition kind of era. That's a condition that the American Psychological Association and other organizations absolutely identify as a medical condition. But if that's why you aren't able to work, then you aren't going to get benefits. That's just a policy decision that they made. More specifically, if they feel that drug addiction or alcoholism is a contributing factor material to your disability, then you lose, unless you can show that you are disabled independent of that. That may be not such a burden. Someone has leukemia and they are an alcoholic. Well, we can look at the leukemia and analyze that. But if someone has severe depression, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia, and they're drinking a lot, it's hard to figure out just exactly what's going on here. Yeah.
What if somebody gets in an accident, disabled from an accident, or due to driving, and it's determined if the person is an alcoholic?
The question was, what happens if you got in an accident? Because, let's say absolutely your blood alcohol content was 9.7, not 0.09, so 9.7. That would be like a 11% anyway. And that is what caused the accident. When this law first came out, we were very fearful that if it was the cause of if it was the instigating incident of your disability, then they would say this meant not disabled. No, it is, if you stopped drinking today, are you still disabled? Well, the person who is in an unfortunate accident today has in fact stopped drinking. Are they any less disabled now? The answer is no. Their drinking plays no role in their current disability. It was the cause in the past, but it is not the cause of their current disability. They are not working now, not because they used to drink. They are not working now because they are paralyzed. And that's the cause, not the drinking. I also have some information about non-citizens, and I'm going to skip over that for now. I want to go on to the really important part of this, and that is the definition of disability. Actually, we've talked about the definition of disability, and I will go back and say, read it over again, and don't fight it, but understand it. But on page 11, I'm going to talk about the process for applying, because as many people have been denied, I'm convinced, because they got lost in the process or didn't know what to do, as they were denied because they were not disabled. So how do you get these benefits? Well, you got to apply, and you may think that that's a silly statement, but it is absolutely the actual statement. I've had people call me up and say, I am disabled, I'm not getting benefits, what can I do? And I say, well, when did you last apply? Oh, well, I didn't apply. I said, well, unfortunately, Social Security does not come knocking door to door looking for people. They used to say that they did outreach and would try to let people know about this. But what they found out, this is, of course, from my jaded perspective, what they found out was if they let people know about it, people will apply, and if they apply, a percentage of them will get benefits, and then it's going to cost the federal government more. So I do a lot of outreach because I think it's really important. People need to understand about this program. So you got to apply. One of the things that I have always said is you have to be bluntly and graphically honest about all of the problems that affect your ability to work. You can't be shy. A person who might have had a significant spinal cord injury and that is obviously a major source of their disability may also have problems of depression, may also have problems of cognition, may also have asthma, may have other problems. All of those problems should be mentioned and should be laid out because it is the whole person who is applying. I say when a person goes to work, all of the person goes to work. When a person doesn't go to work, all of the person doesn't go to work. If a person has a broken leg, the leg doesn't go to work. The whole person goes to work. So make sure that all aspects of your conditions are mentioned in bluntly and graphically honest detail. That sometimes can be very emotional to relive. I guess all I can say is that's true, but you don't want to let Social Security deny a case because they didn't know the whole picture. I was just talking on a conference call with some people around the country about this whole issue of Social Security gathering medical information and the problems they have. One of the problems is sometimes they aren't told about all the problems. They can't go out and gather medical information if they don't know about it. So be bluntly and graphically honest in all respects about all of the conditions you have. Sometimes friends, relatives, spouses, significant others will say things about you that you say, oh, well, that's not true, but everyone else seems to agree it is. Whatever they're talking about should be talked about in the application process. Yeah, application, yes. Application is number 5. So you apply for benefits, you fill out all the paperwork, then it goes to an office called the Disability Determination Service, the abbreviation of which is what? DDS. Yes. Number 8. And they make determinations. Number 10. The people who make the determinations would be called, come on, adjudicators. So that's number 9. These are folks, I mean, people think, well, I'll make the application, I'll go down and I'll sit down and I'll talk to people and I'll make a videotape of my day in the life and I'll show it to them. That isn't how it works. You don't usually see the people who will make the evaluation of, are you disabled, do you meet the standard of disability, because they're in a different city, sitting in a different office. They will take all the paperwork that you filled out and they'll look at it. And then, if you didn't fill it out, they won't know about the problems. They have an obligation to try to develop the record, to get the medical records. But, I say as a cynical advocate, who do you think has the greatest incentive to get all the medical records? You, who are trying to apply for benefits, or the agency that is fiercely defending the National Trust Fund? Most people would agree that they have a greater incentive to get the records. Now, getting records is not as easy as one might think. All facilities will charge for medical record copying. That's just the reality of the world. I was just in touch with a client today who said, oh, no, my counselor guarantees that Social Security will pay for it all. Well, yes and no.
Counselor.
Counselor, very good. Counselor.
Yes, down here twice.
That's probably true. I do.
Where else?
Number 8, and it's somewhere else. Number 4. Number 8 and number 4 is DDS.
And where's counselor?
Counselor is number 14. I forgot completely what I was saying, but you need to be thorough in what you fill out. Social Security does have an obligation to go get the records, but if you can get them and send it to them, I do this training for the MS Association, and there's a woman there who has MS, who's done this, gone through it. She's very good at describing about the medical records development, and she says, so whatever you send to Social Security, send a certified return receipt requested, and make 3 copies. 1 copy to be sent, 1 copy for you, and a second copy to be sent when they lose the first copy. And it's a fairly effective technique. It gets a little costly, but let me tell you, trying to regenerate those records is a problem. So DDS does have the obligation to develop the record. They will look at whatever you send them. But they're under time pressures. They're massively understaffed. They are probably underpaid. They have time pressures. There is a massive backlog of Social Security cases. And they will look at what they got, and then they'll make a decision after having not ever met you. It'll just be on the paper. They will make a decision, and they will send out a decision, and it will be hard to read. It'll say Social Security notice or Supplemental Security Income notice, and it will be 3 or 4 or 5 pages long. And from now on, I'm going to talk about, let's assume the person is denied. What's the process there? Certainly, people get approved right off the bat. I've helped some people get it right off the bat. But we're going to talk in theory about what happens if you get denied. So you get this notice, and it's a denial notice. It doesn't say, it just says, well, it does say, it says notice of denial. You read through it, and you'll be very frustrated if it's you, because it will seem as though they are not talking about the centrally important issues in your case. Well, they got thousands and thousands of applications going on, and they're trying to do the best they can, but they're going to be missing a lot. What happens if you get that letter? Well, you got 60 days to appeal it.
60 days.
Oh, yes. 60 days, critically. Number 11, 60 days. And not 59, not 61 days, not 62 days counting Saturdays and Sundays, 60 days. You do not want to get anywhere close to the cutoff date of 60 days. If you get denied, you have 2 months to appeal it. You shouldn't need 2 months to file the next set of papers. What you file is what's called a request for reconsideration, also known as recon. Recon time. Reconsideration is line 7. So, within 60 days, you fill out another set of papers, which is going to seem like the same set of papers. You're going to say, wait a minute, I just told you this 2 months ago. You're asking me to fill out these similar papers all over again. And if you just put, I told you once before and send it in, you're not, guess what they're going to do? Deny it again. It doesn't really take much to figure that one out. All I can say is, I understand the frustration, but if you can say to yourself, all right, they didn't understand it the first time, I'm going to tell it again, and there's always more information you can tell. It's 2 months have passed, something else has happened, there's another examination, maybe it's not so critical, but it's new information. You want to make it as easy as possible for the colleague of the person that denied you across the hallway is looking at it now to say, oh, more information. My friend that I'm going to have lunch with turned it down, but now I have more information. So I don't have to say they're wrong. I just say I had more information. It turns out the person is disabled. That's a whole lot easier than saying, tell your friend with the same information they were dead wrong. That's just not as easy to do psychologically. So supply as much information, say it over again, say it more clearly, say it more thoroughly, take 3 more pages. People think that, you know, it's a 6-page application form and you can't write on anywhere else. Wrong. I mean, I've seen cases where the person spent 4 months writing an opus. There's something else going on when that's happening. But be thorough. If the person is then denied again, they'll send another notice out. It looks very similar to the first notice. It'll say notice of reconsideration denial. From that day, how many days do you have to think you have to file for a hearing?
30.
No! Come on, is 30 down there? No, 60 days. Everything is 60 days.
Oh, it's all 60.
All 60, and that's very important. Boy, I would have missed so many deadlines if it had been 30. 60 days, every step of the way. What I describe is, it's kind of like climbing a ladder. If we can use the analogy, a bad one, the pot of gold, well, the pot of sort of a little bit of silver, is at the top of the ladder, and the only way you get to the top is to climb each rung in sequence. You can't skip over, you can't hop up, and if you don't take the next step within 60 days, you fall off the ladder. You can try to go and reapply and start climbing up again, but you're never getting anywhere. So always go up the chain. If the person is denied at the reconsideration, they have 6 days to request a hearing. I think we said hearing, didn't I? 12. Now, the hearing is probably going to be the first time that you're going to be eyeball to eyeball with anyone who will make your decision. The hearing is before what's called an administrative law judge, whose acronym is ALJ, which is line 16. The ALJ is I think all ALJs by now are lawyers. They are career lawyers, judges. They see themselves as fiercely independent, though they are unionized. I find that interesting. And they do nothing but make decisions on cases like this, and they also do Medicare and Medicaid cases about coverage. They have a massive backlog. Currently, from the time you ask for a hearing in Seattle, the time you get to go and put eyeball to eyeball to the judge is averaging over 2 years. You will be sitting with nothing going on in your case for 2 years. It doesn't mean you can't try to shake it loose a little bit, but I tell people, in no more than 5% of the cases will you be able to sort of speed it along. Otherwise, you're just in line. Yes, you believe you're disabled. Yes, we're going to show your case, but that's called seeing a judge. So that's another reason why you want to be thorough and comprehensive in the first 2 stages.
Was this 2 years they work 2 days a week?
No, they work 5 and sometimes 6 days a week. There are 13,000 people at the Seattle Social Security Hearing Office waiting for hearings. And they have, I can't remember, 11, 12, 13 judges. And there is big pressure from Congress, from all over, and even the judges know that they've got to process them. But there are 101 explanations for why this is. One of them is there are a lot of people applying. When you go and see a judge, well, if you haven't gotten a lawyer or someone to represent you by this stage, this is the stage that you really need to have someone, because you're going to be going in and seeing a judge and talking to the judge about your condition, applying the rules of Social Security and other rules that come in a big, thick code of federal regulations. And there may be showing up a doctor, a vocational expert. Those people may be asked questions, and you're saying, who are you? What is going on here? Why is this person who's never seen me before giving evidence? You need to be able to respond to that, and I can tell you, it's very hard to, especially when it's about you. Remember the first 25 or 30 hearings I had. It still is hard for me to respond to those. You know, when a doctor says, yes, they say that the person has, say, multiple sclerosis, but I looked at the evidence and I don't think it's MS. Well, funny, all treating physicians think it is. No, but I'm retired for the U, and I think that this really isn't that severe. What do you do then? Well, you better do something, because that's just been put in as evidence, and that's why you need someone who's been doing this for some time. It is the hardest part of our job as lawyers, because you've got to respond right then. It's unlike lawsuits where you get to do discovery, and you're going to know that that's what they're going to say, so you get ready for it. You don't know what this person's going to say, and then you got to respond like that. The hearing, I can tell you, is fairly informal, but it's not as informal as you think, because a lot of stuff is going on there that if you don't know the system, you won't pick up. There'll be code, not secret intentional code, but they're a shorthand for some of these rules and some of the definitions. And it's very important to know what to listen for. The judge will ask you questions. There may be a vocational expert or a medical expert present. You can bring your own counselor or therapist or counselor or therapist. Did we say counselor already? 14. And what do they do at the hearing? They testify. Testify, line 15. I know, but you know, we're getting close to the end here. It is not like a courtroom. It's courtroom. Line 18. What's interesting is they are closed to the public. No one can come in without the claimant's permission, and even then they might not be allowed in unless they have some business there. Everything that is said there is completely confidential. It is a federal offense for a disclosure to a non-Social Security employee of what goes on in those hearings because it is so confidential. The hearings last for about an hour, and usually when you leave the hearing you won't know what the outcome is. They will say thank you very much, and then the judge will look at the records again, and sometimes there's a, after the hearing, follow-up. If you lose at the hearing level, how many days do you have to do something? 60. What do you do then? You can go to what's called the Appeals Council. The Appeals Council, mentioned on page 19, is an organization in Falls Church, Virginia, that reviews the judge's decisions. There are many, and I mentioned in the preface to this material, that there have been a lot of proposed changes in the last 2 to 3 years. One of them was to do away with the Appeals Council because it also takes about 2 years sometimes for the Appeals Council to make decision. So this whole system is in flux now because there are many different proposals to try to address the backlog. But currently there is an Appeals Council. You don't go and see them. It's just a paper review. Typically the lawyer will write a legal brief based on the evidence, and they'll look at it. If you lose there, how many days do you have to go into federal court? 60 days. So you can go into federal court. I've had cases in federal court, and you can go all the way up to the Supreme Court. I've never had a case go to the Supreme Court. My law partner had a case. Once you're sort of at that level, sort of nationwide organizations say, wait a minute, we got to be careful about what cases we take to the Supreme Court. But it is a significant federal litigation. That's a quick overview of the appeals process. I want to talk about one more thing and then take any other questions you have. On page 21, how do lawyers get paid? People are frequently too well brought up to ask that question, so I'll ask it. I'll answer it. Ask it and answer it. Any payment to lawyers is controlled by federal law. We lawyers are regulated by Social Security rules. We can't charge unless the fee is approved by the Social Security Administration, and it has to be approved in writing. And we have to submit our fee agreement, the agreement we have with our clients, for the judge to look at. There are regulations about what it can contain. Typically, a lawyer will charge 25% of any back award on a contingency. We don't get paid unless we win, and then we ask to be paid 25% of any of the back award that unfortunately arises from the long delays. Not the future, but the back money. Sometimes the clients are responsible for the out-of-pocket costs. If the UW sends me medical records and they send me a bill for $50, then I pay the UW because I'm going to be going to them many times over the course of the case maybe, or many other clients. I pay them, and then I'm in the whole $50. I tell my clients, as we go along, you need to pay that bill. But that's not for my time. And if we lose, the client gets 0 and I get 25% of 0. So I'm gambling. It does mean that I look closely at the cases, but my personal view is I'm not supposed to be the judge. I'm supposed to be the lawyer. I need to look at it and say, is there a reasonable chance that this person could win? If I think there is, then I'll take the case. But I've said no over the years to many clients. But I've said yes to way more. That tells you about the lawyers. Now, the one last thing that I want to include here is I want to mention to you, I have put at the end of these materials, starting on page, let's see, about 31. Social Security, the definition of disability is that inability to do any substantial gainful activity for a 12-month period. That is the overall controlling broad definition. But Social Security has also said there are certain medical conditions that if we just know the medical criteria, the symptoms and the symptomatology and the degree to which the person is restricted, they win automatically.
Listing of impairments.
Listing of impairments. Boy, you're good. And that is under line 19.
And what did you say was 3 again?
3 is substantial gainful activity SGA. So, I have pulled out of these listing of impairments the ones that relate to spinal cord injuries because that is the most topical. This is part of the Code of Federal Regulations. It's issued by the Social Security Administration, and it does list in about 12 or 13, 14 I guess it is, categories. Broad types of, there are ones for head injuries, mental illness, cancer, vision problems, skin problems, and each area is separate and they're very precise. I've pulled out under section 11 the areas that relate to spinal cord injuries, the neurological, basically can be summarized. They want to know if the injury has caused, on page 31, a significant and persistent disorganization of motor function in 2 extremities, resulting in sustained disturbance of gross and dexterous movement or gait and station. Translated, has it really messed up your ability to walk or use your hands and arms? If that's what if you can document that, then, and as I've sort of glossed over it, and the other pages get into more detail, but that's the focus of the kind of spinal cord injury issue, which is completely unrelated to other conditions, although other conditions do produce that, and sometimes they refer to this section. You can have multiple sclerosis with significant impact of gait and station, and they sometimes refer to this section. But this is what they want to know about. Now, as I said, many conditions have a corollary of problems, so there may be other things going on too, and you need to know about that. So that is a quick summary of this very complex world. What I can say is it's important for you to, if you are applying, to persist. Do not let Social Security deny your benefits because they wore you down. They're very good, not intentionally wearing you down. It's just they're a slow, bureaucratic maze. And if they turn you down and you just throw it away and say, well, heck with them, then they've won. It doesn't mean you aren't disabled. It means that they won. So are there any lines here that are not filled out? 6. Benefits. Benefits is line 6. Any others? You see, we got them. Are there any other, let me grab this. Are there 3? SGA, substantial gainful activity. Evidence is medical is, where is that? Evidence is medical. You must be, benefits, evidence is medical is line 13. I put my cheater sheet here. I put benefits are medical. I don't think so. So we have it all there. Any other questions anyone has?
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite clear. You said a person should apply for both regular Social Security and for Social Security disability to see which one they might get more of?
No, somewhat like that. I said that you should apply for the 2 programs that are available, Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, and Social Security Disability Insurance.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay, now I have another question.
Yeah.
If a person, I'm thinking of my stepson, he's 61.
Yep.
And he gets SSD.
Yep.
Well, when he turns 65, does he still get that, or
All right.
a regular? Or he's got a long work history, but he hasn't worked for 10 years.
All right. The question is, what happens to someone who's getting Social Security disability and they turn 65 and so they'd be eligible for retirement? Basically, what's going on is, when you get Social Security disability, you're getting Social Security disability sort of retirement. They've retired you because of a disability. When you turn 65, Nothing changes from your end. The money is going to be the same. You're getting basically your retirement because you were retired because of a disability. It converts to a different column in their ledger card, but the benefits continue to come from Social Security, and if you didn't look at it, you wouldn't know that there was a change. Okay? All right, now the question is, we don't actually lock the doors, but we're going to actually sing. Here's people getting up there leaving. But this is a very simple song. And all you have to do, you don't have to sing the whole song. You only have to sing the chorus. So I'm going to play you the chorus. Yes.
I came in late. I missed the part about the song. So.
Well, good. You can just hum along then.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, there you go.
The tie behind you.
Yeah. It's a simple song, so you can sing along. They're so eager to sing the song. All right, so let me just go over the chorus, and that's all you're going to need to sing. GAUSSI, another acronym is going to make me cry. We got SGA, we got DDS. Lord, help me out of this God-forsaken mess. Yes, Lord, help me out. Very simple. Except everyone's dodging, and I know what you're doing. You're doing the, oh my God, they're going to call on me. Right over there, I think that's what you're doing. Just like in college, you hide. But this is simple. If you do a little humming, the person next to you thinks you're singing, and they will then do a little humming, and pretty soon, all the folks out there are going to want in to sing along. I once did this, sorry to digress, did this at a welfare office in Vancouver, Washington, with my co-author, Pat McIntyre. And we were doing it in the heart of a welfare office, and they had all those sort of low-rise dividers so the sound went out. And we began to do this song, and I swear, dozens of people who weren't involved in the training wanted to come over. So that's another reason why we lock the doors, to not let the outsiders in. All right, very simple chorus. GAUSSI, another acronym is going to make me cry. We got SGA, we got DDS. Lord, help me out of this God-forsaken mess. Yes, Lord, help me out. Not bad. But we're going to need a little more volume here, okay? So we're going to kick it off, just the chorus, and then I'll do the verses, and then you get to come on in. And if we're really doing well, we're going to get some three-part harmony. Here we go. GAUSSI, another acronym is going to make me cry. We got SGA, we got DDS. Lord, help me out of this God-forsaken mess. Yes, Lord, help me out. Very good. Take a break. Well, you get a ton of paper and you make your application. Benefits denied, then it's reconsideration. Well, the doctor says you're sick and DDS is hesitating. Adjudicators take their time to make determinations. Here we go. GAUSSI, another acronym is going to make me cry. We got SGA, we got DDS. Lord, help me out of this God-forsaken mess. Yes, Lord, help me out. All right. Well, if you get it, well, if you ask in 60 days, then you can have a hearing. The evidence is medical that you must be preparing. So go and see your counselor and ask her for a letter. Beg her come and testify, because that is so much better. Here we go. GAUSSI, another acronym is going to make me cry. We got SGA, we got DDS. Lord, help me out of this God-forsaken mess. Yes, Lord, help me out. Well, the ALJ will ask you why you think you are disabled. It isn't like a courtroom, just an office and a table. But the listing of impairments is the key to your succeeding. A doctor and a lawyer are the friends you may be needing. Here we go, one last time with feeling. GAUSSI, another acronym is going to make me cry. We got SGA, we got DDS. Lord, help me out of this God-forsaken mess. Yes, Lord, help me out. Big folk ending. Oh yes, Lord, 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 help me out. All right. Well, other than why do you make us sing that song, are there any other questions?
One thing I may have
Yeah.
you probably said is, if a person has other income, does that matter?
It matters. If someone has other income, does it matter? It matters for SSI. It doesn't matter for Social Security. All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much to Peter McKee for presenting tonight. And this concludes the forum. Thank you very much for attending.